Hi everyone, welcome to JavaTechie. In this tutorial, we'll discuss how to upload a file dynamically in Spring Batch workflow. Okay, alright. If you remember, already we have discussed the Spring Batch complete series from the basic. If anyone is not aware about it, they can go to my YouTube channel and find a playlist called Spring Batch. So already I uploaded couple of video about the Spring Batch with different kind of use case. So you guys can refer this particular playlist. Even I will share the link in video description for your reference. Okay. So to understand how we can perform the dynamic file upload in the Spring Batch, let me walk you through the Spring Batch default flow with the code. Then we'll find out what's wrong on it. Then we'll deep dive further to find out the solution for it. Okay. So without any further delay, let's get started. So to save our time, I'm using the existing code of the Spring Batch example, which I have discussed in the Spring Batch playlist. So I'll share the GitHub link so that you can directly refer it. So to save our time, I'm just using the existing code. Okay. So as you know, in the Spring Batch workflow, there are the three major components. If you'll go to the Spring Batch config file, you will find three major components. One is the reader, who will read your file from the source, and one is the processor who will process the data, and one is the writer who will write your object or file information to the destination, which is the DB for us, right? Next, if you will observe the configuration, the reader, writer and processor, whatever we have defined, we are giving to the step object. Now at the end, to execute that particular step, we are just giving that particular step object to the job build factory. Okay. Now if you will go to the controller class, I have defined one endpoint. Let me open that. I have defined one endpoint slash import data. So once you will hit this particular endpoint, job launcher will launch a job by taking the job object as a parameter and any job parameter what you are giving. So currently we are giving start at, that is what something the time. So this job parameter is nothing the key and value which you want to pass dynamically, or at the runtime if you want to pass something to the job, then you can use the job parameters. Okay. So this is what something the endpoint I have defined, and the application is up and running. So let me hit this endpoint and then we'll see how the record is getting inserted. Okay. So what is the endpoint? Import data. Let me go to the postman. This is what the endpoint. So you don't have anything on the body, just remove this. I'll just send the request. Okay. So we got the status code 200, and if you observe in the console, you will find the couple of insert statement here. See here, we have some insert statement. I mean, it read from the file by reader, it process few of the record, then finally it write to the DB. This is the default flow of the Spring Batch. So that already I explained in my first tutorial. You can refer that. Okay. Now let's verify in the DB. So I will just open this particular table. I have the record inserted here, and there are couple of table given by the Spring Batch. So if you want to check the job execution, you will find the status as a completed. If you want to check the step execution, you will find the status as completed. Okay, let me zoom this. And if you want to see any parameter what you are giving to the job at runtime, so this is what batch job execution params. This is the table. You can verify this. So if you observe, we are giving the start at as a key, or this is what the object we are giving as a job parameter at runtime. Okay, so this is what the default flow. So if you observe carefully in the Spring Batch config file, as part of the reader, we are just telling him, hey reader, please read the file from this particular directory. But that is what not something we can implement in the real time, right? We never know from what exact path user will try to import the file. I cannot hardcode the path of the file what I want to perform as part of the Spring Batch. So we need to tell to this reader, don't take the path directly from the hard-coded value, take it from the file. I mean, when user will upload a file, get that path and just process your reader logic, right? So to avoid that, simply we can remove this path because we are not going to hard code it. We want to take the file path dynamically at runtime. Okay, so we no need to hard code here. Now then, who will give the file path to the reader? My controller, because controller is the endpoint. I have defined the endpoint. This particular method will receive the file uploaded by a user. How I can receive the file? As you know, there is something called multipart file, right? Multipart file, and give the multipart file. Here I will just annotate. I mean, I just want to capture the key, right? So I'll just use request param, and the key should be file, then value should be the file, particular raw binary file. Okay, so now I got the file path. Now how can I give this particular file which I am giving at runtime to my job? So that is what the reason of using this job parameters. So the way we are adding the start at here, the file which you will receive as part of your input, just add it to the job parameter. Then from job parameter, we can fetch from this reader. Hey job parameter, give me the file which you received. Okay, that's it. That is the simple step we need to do. So I will just add the file to the job parameter. So I'll just do dot add string. So I'll just give a key as a anything you can give. Okay, so I'll just give full path file name, full path file name, and what is the name of your file you will get from this multipart file. So what I will do, I will just get your string original file name equal to multipart file dot get original file name. Fine. Then I will just create a file object which I want to import. So I'll just create a file to import equal to new file of original file. Okay, this is what the file I want to import. Now what next? I need to give the absolute path of this particular file in the value of this particular key, because this is what the value, I mean this is what the key, and this is what the corresponding value file to import dot get absolute path. This is what the value I want to pass to the job parameter, so that this job parameter will append this at runtime and will give to my reader, so that reader can read the path here rather than taking the hard code value. So this makes sense, right? These job parameters, I am just appending the file path what user is uploading. That's it. Nothing complex. Okay. So I'll tell you in this approach we will find out. I mean we'll see some exception. Then I'll tell you how we can overcome that. Now since this job parameter is holding the full path file name, that I need to extract in my Spring Batch config file, right? So I just need to use the value annotation to get that particular file path at runtime. So what I can do here, I'll just define string path to file or something like that. Then I will get that path to file from job parameter, right? So I'll just use @value annotation, and then I need to define here the dynamic value which I will fetch from the job parameter. So make sure to give the proper name. So I will just copy this. I will get the value from job parameters. Okay, and the path is nothing, whatever the key I am giving, full path file name. Okay, so this is what the value, this is what the path to my file which I want to upload. And how I can get it? Since I am binding it to the job parameter at runtime in my controller, this is where I am binding as a key and value. I can fetch it from this job parameter, and what is the key. Then simple, I need to pass the new file here. New file path to file. Okay, so it will create a file and reader will read from that particular file. Now we are not hard coding the path of my file. Okay, that's fine. Now this step will cry, because in item reader we have the argument, right? So what we can do, we'll simply copy this argument flat file item reader and we'll pass it to the step method. Okay, So just go to the step and just pass it here and just use that item reader as a argument. Similarly, if you observe, this step method is being invoked from the run job method. So again this will cry, right? So here also I will pass the item reader and I will pass the same item reader to the step method. All good, right? So there is no compilation error. Now there is again another challenges. So what we need to do, as we know, by default scope of each and every bean is singleton, right? Reader, processor, writer, everything is the default scope as a singleton. But we need to make this reader scope as a step execution, not as a singleton. So what you can do, you just need to annotate @step scope. Okay, this step scope annotation means that Spring Batch will use the Spring container to instantiate a new instance of that component for each step execution. Okay, this is often useful for doing parameter late binding, where a parameter may be specified either at the step context or to the job execution context level, and this need to be substituted for a placeholder. Okay, the way we are binding the file at runtime, so this is what the recommended approach to use this particular @step scope annotation. Okay, so all good. Now let's run our code and we'll see how the file is getting imported. Okay, so before we rerun it, I'll just delete the record from DB. Okay, so we need to verify whether the record is getting inserted or not. So first let me delete it. We'll just verify, is there any record exist? No, all good. Okay, so let me restart the app. Okay, so let's wait it to complete. So application started. Now go to the controller. Now to call this import data method, we need to pass a file and we'll see how the flow is going on. So let me call this method and I need to give the file as a key. So just go to the postman. Let's use the same. This is the input data. Go to the body, form data, and just choose the key as a file. So I'll just name it file, then select the file. Okay, I'll just choose from the download. Fine, this is customers.csv. Let me run it. We'll find the exception, then I'll tell you what is the problem. Then I'll also tell you how we can overcome it. So let me simply run it. If you'll check in the message here, we are getting input resource must exist. Okay, reader is in the let me zoom this. Reader is in strict mode. File user JavaTechie desktop, JavaTechie code, Spring Batch example, customer.csv. So if you observe carefully, if you observe this particular line number 51, we are giving full path file name, file to import dot get absolute path. In this particular scenario, here we are just uploading a file, but my multipath file is unable to identify what is the location from where the file is uploaded. So that is the reason when we are getting the absolute path, we are getting, see, this is what my project directory, right? From project directory only, it is just searching the customers.csv file. But in my project directory, I don't have any customer.csv file, right? Can you see any file here in this project directory? No. That is what it is looking for. But we are not giving that. We are uploading the file from the postman dynamically. It could be from my C drive, or it can be from my D drive, or from download location, anything, right? We cannot force user to load a file from a specific directory. He can upload a file from different directory from his or her machine, right? So, but in my code, since we are just getting the file path from the multipath file, that is the reason when we are getting the absolute path, it is looking in my particular project. So what we can do to overcome that, first, what user is uploading a file, keep a clone of it in some directory or store in the DB, then get its path and give it to the job parameter. This is what some step you can do. So here, if you observe, we are getting the file, right? But we don't know the path of it. Path we don't know. From where user uploaded, that path we don't know, right? Only what we get the file. Now what you can do, copy the file to some storage in your VM. Since we are trying in our local, so I can create in some directory in my any folder. But if you are implementing it in the real time, make sure to create a path in your virtual machine where your application is hosted. Okay, if not, copy the file to DB, then get the file path. Or similarly, copy the file to some storage in your VM, get the file path, and give that path to this particular place. Don't give the absolute path, get absolute path of the file what you are importing. But multipath, because multipath file don't know the path from where user uploaded it. Okay, this is the simple funda. So what I can do, I'll just create a simple folder in my desktop. So okay, I have something called temp, right? Or I'll just create some different one. Let me remove this. New folder, let's say batch files. This is my folder. I'll just get a path of it. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll make this as a root directory. So for that, I'll simply define that path as a root directory. So I'll just create a variable here, private uh, string. I will just declare it final. Okay, final string temp storage. Okay, any name you can give. Temp storage equal to this. Fine. Now I will get the original file from this multipath file. But that original file, which is the original file name, I want to copy it to the temp storage. So I, rather than define the file name, I'll just give the path where I want to move that file. So I'll just give the temp storage. Okay. Then I will also add a slash here. That makes sense. Okay. So this, I want to create a file in this temp storage folder. Now copy the file from the multipath file to the location. Okay, so simply you can use multipath files or multipath file dot transport to the destination. Destination is the file which I want to import. Okay, so just add the exception. Fine. Now here also I no need to give absolute path because I know where my file will be placed, right? This is the place where my file will be stored. Let me copy this and just paste it. Simple. The logic is very simple. From the multipath file, get the file, then create a file object to the root path or the temporary path, whatever you define. Then just transfer the multipath file object to the this is the destination. Copy that file to this destination. Okay, what is the destination? This is what the destination. And then I'm just giving the destination details to the full path file name as a value. That's it. Okay, now the file will be stored in this particular location, right, which we just created. So go to the desktop. This is where it will store. I'm just giving the path of it and I'm just giving the file name. Now you might be assuming that, hey, if you will do such kind of implementation, then my VM will be unnecessarily occupied with lot of memory, right? So you can validate some logic here. Just you have the execution object with you, right? You can do something like this. If execution dot get status, okay, dot get the code of it or something like that, get, or you can just do the equals. Okay, or simply you can just do, rather than get the status, get the exit status. Okay, exit, yeah, exit status, then get the code of it, which will give you either completed or failed, dot equals Okay, so you can just validate here exit status dot completed, then delete the file from that folder. Delete the file from the temp storage, right? Again, this will increase your lot of IO operation, so that you need to think before implement. Whether you will keep it in your DB or you will find out some storage where in that particular VM you will not do more IO operation. If you will do also, there will be not impact to your application. Okay, so you can find out such kind of scenario. So here you can simply do files, okay, delete if exist or something like that, and give the path. What is the path? Storage path and the file name. That's it, right? So you can pass this. This is the path, right? So better you can not don't pass like this. You can just do paths dot get and give the location. You can do like this if the status is completed. If not, just do the log analysis why the file is not parsed correctly. So this is additional step, you can add it. I'm not going to do this now. So we just append the correct file path to the job parameter. Now from the job parameter we are fetching in our reader. Okay, not here. Go to the reader. This is the first bin. Yeah, here we are just fetching from job parameter. Now all good. Let me rerun the code. So application started. We'll verify in the DB once again. Select star from the table. Nothing is there. And if you'll check the job execution parameter, we have start at. Then second time when we got the exception, we are giving full path file name, but it is taking our project directory, right? That is what the wrong. That is the reason we are getting the exception. And again start at. Let's see whether the full file path is giving the path where we are storing the file or not. So simply go to the postman. This is the request is ready. Just send the request. Can you see here? Lot of insert statement. I mean the file which you upload, my reader is able to read that particular file and it is able to process it. But before it come to the reader, what we did, we just copy the file to the different folder on my machine. What is this? Batch files. And if you open this, you can open this directly from this tool, and this is what the file my reader will read, because that is what we are setting in the job parameters. Okay, and reader will insert the record. Let's verify it now. We can see the record here. Now if you'll check the job parameters, can you see here the full path file name? I'll copy it here, okay, for better visibility. This is what the path we are copying the file uploaded by the user. That is how this path we are giving to the reader. Reader is happily able to read from this particular directory. There is no confusion. But in real time, find out the VM where if you do n number of IO operation, it will not impact to your application. So based on that, you can design. I noticed few of my project we are already storing into the DB and we are converting it to the byte array, then we are processing it. But in some of the scenario I saw, we just make a clone copy of the imported file in the different location, then we are processing it the way we just did now. Okay, so the approach can be vary based on your use case, or as per your requirement you need to choose the correct decision. Okay, so that's it about the dynamic file upload using the Spring Batch. So do let me know in a comment section if you have any doubts. That's all about this particular video, guys. Thanks for watching this video. Meet you soon with a new concept.